Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We join you today from Blackwell in Kay County, the last stop on the county portion of SUNUP's 2016 Fair Tour. 9-year-old Tonkawa 4-H'er Callie Gilbert is showing a calf and 2 sheep this year. We visited with her just before she went into the ring, and she says she's learned a lot since last year.
My brother has gotten to do it for years, and I decided that I think it might be fun, and it has been. I've learned more about how to lead and set up my cattle and sheep. My calf's name is Kit Kat, and he's really fuzzy.
We'll have more from here shortly, but first we're talking pest management and what to look for in your fields to help ensure the seeds you're planting this fall get off to a good start. Here's SUNUP's Dave Deacon and our extension entomologist, Tom Royer.
2016 has been a busy year for caterpillars, and Tom, let's talk about what producers are seeing across the state.
I've been getting calls about fall armyworms hitting some early planted wheat. Got some pictures in from Oklahoma City with fall armyworms chewing on lawns, and gotten some calls from some of our extension specialists saying that canola and wheat is vulnerable, and they're seeing caterpillars around. So right now, I think it's important that every producer that's thinking about getting ready to plant their wheat, getting ready to plant canola, be aware that their crop is at risk to fall armyworm, and they need to be starting to watch it as soon as it comes out of the ground and keep watching it.
How long are we in this fall armyworm warning, I guess?
The fall armyworm warning is from now until killing frost. We've had them build up all summer long in some of our different crops. This has just been a good year for caterpillars. If you were paying attention to pecans, fall webworms are around. This has just been a good year for them. So they've been building up in sorghum all summer and in corn, and so right now, I forgot to mention, if a producer wants to harvest a hay crop, they'd better be watching that, because I've had numerous times where a producer, a guy that was getting ready to cut pasture, said, I was getting ready and I saw these little armyworms, and I came out 4 days later and my pasture was gone. So they need to be watching as well. I don't want any producer to be spraying if they don't need to, but our threshold in wheat is about 1 to 2 per linear foot. And we like to catch them early when they're smaller, ½ inch or smaller, because they're a lot more susceptible to any of the treatments.
Now, fall armyworms are not the only insects out there right now. There's some ways to tell the different caterpillars apart.
Yes, I had gotten a call from a producer in Caddo County, or a county agent in Caddo County, that was having some double crop soybeans that were being fed upon, and in that case they thought they had soybean looper, and I told them they needed to count the feet, because if it's soybean looper, it's going to have on its abdomen 3 total pairs of legs. Green clover worm, which looks very similar and actually has the same kind of looping motion, will have 4 pairs of legs, and velvet bean caterpillar, if that's around, it'll have 5 pairs. So it's important to count those feet, and the reason that it's important is because soybean looper, there's a lot of research showing that it's fairly resistant to pyrethroid insecticides, which is a very inexpensive and effective choice. Velvet bean caterpillar and green clover worm would be much more susceptible and be easier to control them and less expensive to control them.
So it's good to know what you're going after. Absolutely. Before you even get to the field.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you much, Tom. And for more information about these insects, you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Those Oklahoma cow-calf operations that have fall calving herds may be raising some yearling replacement heifers to breed later this fall in order to go into the herd for future calf crops. As we're getting those yearling replacement heifers ready, there's several things that I think are important to consider even a few days out before the breeding season begins. First of all, I want to make sure those heifers are big enough going into that breeding season. We expect that breeding season to start, say, the mid to latter part of November. At that time, we want the smallest of those yearling replacement heifers to weigh 60% of their potential mature weight. Well, if we expect most of our cows in the herd to be about 1,200 pounds, that means the smallest of these replacement heifers should weigh 720 or more going into that breeding season. If you've got a set of scales, I would check the weights on some of these replacement heifers to see if they're on track, that they're gaining enough to meet that target weight by the time the breeding season begins. If you don't have scales to use, then use your eyeball and look to see that the body condition on these heifers is going to be at least about a body condition score 6 at the start of the breeding season. That way, we'll have a high percentage of these heifers cycling, so we'll get a high percentage of them bred early in that breeding season, and they'll be in good stead then to go into the herd in the future. Also, consider the health of these replacement heifers. Now is a good time to visit with your veterinarian about what immunizations you want to give these yearling replacement heifers before the breeding season begins. Certainly they'll want to consider such things as the IBR, BVD vaccinations. And if we give modified live versions of those, I'd like to do that at least a month ahead of the start of the breeding season. Also, ask them about the reproductive problems that might occur with Campylobacter, a disease that we used to call vibriosis, and also whether they need to be vaccinated in your area for leptospirosis. Certainly, now's the time to prepare these replacement heifers to be big enough and in good health standing as they get ready for this first breeding season, and that way we'll have a high percentage of them bred, a high percentage of them calving next year, and getting on to a good start in their reproductive life as part of our cow herd. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow Calf Corner.
We're talking now about stockpiling Bermudagrass for fall and winter feeding needs with Dave Lohman, our Extension Beef Cattle Specialist. And Dave, you and the team have done some research on this very pasture, haven't you?
We have. A number of years ago, we'd been encouraged by some of the faculty and field staff have been around and tried it a few times. So we actually conducted some research and got some very encouraging results.
So why would I want to stockpile Bermudagrass? What are as you're weighing the options, why might this be a good idea?
Well, I mean, the general principle is to take the machinery out of the equation, to try to let the cow harvest the forage as much as possible, to cut down on depreciation of equipment, wear and tear on equipment, all the labor costs and so on that goes with mowing, raking, baling, hauling hay to a feeding area and then hauling it back out to the animals. So that's the general principle, and that's basically, if you can skip all that, that makes the economics look pretty more positive.
What did your research tell you out in this pasture? Okay,
well, if the principle is that, and you would have heard Dr. Selk talk about it in the past, but stockpile Bermudagrass idea is to harvest the forage that's out in the pasture hay meadow sometime in the late August, early September time frame, and then fertilize it with somewhere around 50 to 60 pounds of nitrogen, actual nitrogen per acre. That should allow forage regrowth, and the regrowth is good quality. In the research we did out here, the yield of the 50 to 60 pounds was in the neighborhood of 1,500 pounds in the worst years, or low precipitation years, up to almost 4,500 pounds of regrowth per acre. So quite a range, the average being in the 2,000 to 3,000 pound area. Forage quality was high through all the way through the month of January. It would range from about 15% crude protein down to around 10% crude protein. So considerable variation, but still high quality forage.
And I'm guessing in order for it to be productive in the way that producers want, you're going to need a decent amount of rain.
That's right, and that's the key. I mean, it is the key. If you're coming into late August and it's extremely dry and has been dry for a long period of time, you know, you would expect the response to be nil or very low, at the low end of that range that I mentioned. On the other hand, if you've had recent 2-3 inches of rain there in late August, and it looks like the forecast is hopefully going to bless you with another few inches of rain over the next few weeks, those are the ideal conditions.
So a year like this year
A year
in
like
a lot
this
of
year.
places.
Yep, that's right.
Now, once the pasture is kind of set up, like in the way that you mentioned, what do I need to know in terms of actually grazing my cows on it and then supplement needs?
In the research that we did with grazing cattle on Stockpile Bermudagrass, we aimed for about 65% harvest efficiency or forage utilization. If you aim to harvest more of the regrowth than that, you're forcing the animals to consume the stem part of the plant, lower quality, and so on. You would expect animal performance to decline. So, not that you can't harvest more, it's just that we felt like that was probably, you know, somewhere in the optimum range. So to do that, it's helpful. It's not a requirement, of course, but it's helpful if you can strip graze it until you get about that, say, 60 to 70% utilization, or rotationally graze it, just some way to manage the amount of forage that's removed and make fairly uniform grazing removal of that resource.
And then in terms of supplements?
Supplementation, our study showed that you don't have to have a real high protein supplement, which of course would be more expensive because the forage itself is fairly high already. Our data showed that around a 20 to 25%, about 2 pounds a day for a cow of a 20 to 25% product was about ideal, and it did boost their performance a little bit if they start grazing sometime in October and they continue grazing through the month of January.
Thank you, Dave. And for an extension fact sheet on stockpiling Bermudagrass, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk a little bit about PTO shafts, U-joints, and a transition from standard SAE systems into more metric systems.
So, you know, it used to be we had the SAE system, which is the inch system, and your U-joints would be measured and you'd get an inch unit. But nowadays, with all the PTO shafts coming from Europe, we're transitioning to metric type PTO shafts. And the way you tell those is typically on a metric shaft, it's going to have some type of lobe around it.
Generally, you know, most of our US shafts that we would have would just be square. There's going to be a piece of square tubing, maybe hexagonal or something like that, but the metric ones are either going to be kind of oblong cross section with some lobes on it, or triangular like this with some lobes on it.
Yeah, they'll have some type of odd shape to them, typically as compared to the American unit. And then the reason you need to know that is if you ever have to replace your U-joint crosses, then you need to be able to measure them and see what particular size you need, and that's going to be metric. I mean, you can't just round it up nowadays to what you think is what is the SAE standard. You'd have to actually go with the metric unit.
So you need to know what the cross section of the shaft looks like, and that's going to tell you if you have a metric or a standard U-joint, and then you need to measure the U-joint to determine what size it is.
Okay, and when you're doing these U-joints, there's it's kind of like hitches. We have categories of hitches. You also have series of U-joints in ag, and so there's different series. Make sure you have the right series of U-joint for the shaft for the horsepower needs you're going to require.
So make sure you know what you need when you're going to replace something on your PTO shaft or any shaft that's running a U-joint. That's it this week on Shop Stop. We'll see you next week.
The soil across Oklahoma is ready to take seed, and Kim, let's talk about grain prices.
Well, you look at wheat around Oklahoma, $2.80 to $2.90 I get most places. Corn around $2.70 in central Oklahoma, $3 in the Panhandle, and sorghum $2.35 in central Oklahoma and $2.50 in the Panhandle.
Times have really changed when it comes to prices, haven't they?
Well, when you look at around the world and you wonder why prices are changing, times are changing. You look at Russia in 2000. Before 2000, they were exporting essentially zero bushels of wheat. This year, they're projected to export 1.1 billion. Ukraine was zero. It went to about 500 million bushels. Kazakhstan from zero to about 0.3 billion bushels. That's 1.9 billion bushels on the export market that wasn't there at 2000 and before. And that's exports that the United States doesn't have, and that's one reason our prices are low.
And it's because the world market is just flooded with wheat.
Well, it's flooded with all the grains. You can say the same thing for corn. You can say the same thing for soybeans with Brazil, Argentina, or even Russia and other countries are increasing their corn and bean production. So livestock, all ag commodities, it's becoming a world market.
Let's talk about what Oklahoma producers should do now that they've planted the seed in the ground.
Well, if they've already got the seed in the ground, I think what they've got to concentrate on is producing a quality product. It's going to be quality that works for us around the world so that we can gain some of this export market back. The good news is the bad news, let's do it first, is that we had excess grain, big production. The good news is that the quality, the protein levels around the world with increased yields, the protein's low, and it's low worldwide. Even the spring wheats that are coming in now being harvested, the protein's low. I think what the market's going to pay for next year is a good milling quality product.
What do you tell that producer that's, and you kind of alluded to it there a little bit, but what do you tell that producer that's really thinking about cutting back on those input costs?
Well, I don't think they should cut back on the input cost. I think what producers need to concentrate on right now is not this year.
Right.
Get a quality product produced, but look out over the next 5 or 10 years. How are they going to keep the yields high and the quality up? What land are they going to leave in wheat and what land are they going to take out? What I think monocropping is becoming a thing of the past. What crops can they rotate with to break these disease cycles, these weed cycles, so that we can get our cost of production lower? Because right now, Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Argentina all have lower cost of production for wheat than we do.
How do they keep their cost of production so much lower than the U.S.?
They don't monocrop. They do crop rotation, and they break those. They let nature break those weed and disease cycles.
Okay, Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Is summer over? We've passed into the second half of September, and our moisture will help moderate temperatures as our days continue to shorten. Wednesday afternoon may have been a crossover day. By 4:30 p.m., the state was divided roughly along the Interstate 44. South and to the east, afternoon highs were close to 90. West and north, afternoon highs were closer to 80. As of September 13th, 17 Mesonet sites never recorded a 100-degree day in 2016. 11 more sites only had one 100-degree or higher day. Hollis had the most 100-degree days with 26. Granfield and Hooker had 24. Those counts are low compared to 2011. That year, Granfield had 101 days of 100 or more degrees. Kenton had the fewest that year, 15. 2011 was a record buster for heat. We'll be watching the recharge of deeper soil moisture from this week's rainfall. A soil moisture map from midweek for the 24-inch depth showed lots of variation across the state. Green areas indicated higher soil moisture, brown areas had dry soils. Here's Gary with a look at our drought status and summer rainfall.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, as usual, we're going to start with our old nemesis, the drought. So let's get right to it. The latest U.S. Drought Monitor report released on Thursday does show areas of abnormally dry to even severe drought conditions from northern Oklahoma over to the northeast and then down into south central Oklahoma, with the worst of those areas, the severe drought, centered in south central Oklahoma and just east of Tulsa up in northeastern Oklahoma. Now, why are we seeing these drought areas? Well, I'm going to show you a series of 3 maps. The 30-day rainfall map from the Mesonet with the radar overlay, and the 60-day and the 90-day. I want you to pay attention closely to those green areas on the radar overlay. Those are areas that have received much less rainfall than surrounding areas. So let's start with the 30-day map. You can see across west central and northwest Oklahoma, down in the southeastern parts of the state too, and assorted areas around here and there with the oranges and the yellows. They received the best rainfall. Those areas in the light green and even the darker green, not quite so much. Now let's go to the 60-day rainfall map. Here we see those green areas. Once again, those are the areas with the lower rainfall amounts, and that coincides pretty well with our area of abnormally dry conditions and the drought conditions on the Drought Monitor map. Now I'm going to show you the 90-day rainfall accumulation map, and that area, that really a broad area of moderate to severe drought down in south central Oklahoma, really shows up on this map with the greens and the yellows. Those are areas of from 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, and that's through much of the summer. So you combine that lack of rainfall in southern Oklahoma with the intense heat that we've seen at times this summer, and there you have that drought intensification. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Finally today, a look at why for 99 years the K County Fair has meant so much to generations of Oklahoma families.
A lot of the Fair Board members, they grew up in the 4-H program, so they know how the programs ran, and now their kids are going through it, and they're putting entries in livestock and then also crafts and crops. The livestock families and 4-H families, they grew up together, and they're there to help one another. They want to win, everybody wants to win, but they also want to see their neighbors and friends do good as well. And it takes a family to be productive in the 4-H program and be productive at the fair.
To me, it's important to be here at your local fair to show your support to your county and show, hey, I'm here. You can do these cool, incredible things. But other than that, it's really just all my family and friends being here. Yep, my sister Mackenzie Overman, and then my dad used to show, and then I have a stepbrother that shows.
It's my senior year, and I kind of wanted to be the best this year, out of my family at least. No, I can't win them all, but I can try.
Congratulations, Mackenzie Overman, class winner in class 1. Second place goes to Jesse Miller.
I think that's pretty cool to have a sister and a stepbrother that are here showing.
Fourth that shows, I don't know, on my farm there's been 6 generations that have lived there. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and then my dad, and then me, and got 2 sons and daughter and my grandchildren. Awful proud to come in and watch my kids show and carrying on the tradition, I guess, and learning about farming. They're all, I'd like to keep it involved in the farm and hopefully be able to keep the farm in the family.
Just like to see the kids participate and do their projects and learn that animals need to be treated right to be showed, and the more they work with them, the better off they do in their classes.
We're possibly the most competitive whenever it comes to a family. Every year, me and my sister, since I started showing, we used to have a contest of who won the most plaques every single year. I won one year and I won every single one because I had so many hogs. After that, my luck's been down, but I still show. That's the important part for me.
Nolan Overman exhibits the champion shorthorn steer. Congratulations, Nolan.
They want to beat each other, but they all get along in the end and help each other get it done.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online on our website and also follow us on YouTube and social media. From the Kay County Fair in Blackwell, I'm Lyndall Stout. We'll see you next time at SUNUP.